I love the fact the NHS is a public service, but the people using it and the people working in it can see that it's broken and there are a whole number of things that aren't right. And unless you're honest about the problem, how can you deal with it? Unless you've got an accurate diagnosis.
What are you going to do about it?
Did you recognise that voice?
Well, do you know, back a long time ago when I was president of NUS, I had the terrifying experience of appearing on Newsnight. So back then, I didn't think it was going to happen to me again. I thought I'd escaped when you'd left Newsnight, but here I am being subjected to the Paxo treatment.
I should stress at this point that Jeremy is tackling a Scotch egg as underway. He's a believer in multitasking.
Well, I'm just glad the fork's in the Scotch egg and not in me, frankly. I think the NHS would do very well to learn from some of the world's leading innovators in terms of how to do discovery science, and also how to marry discovery science with faster application, adoption and rollout.
This is all just guff. I mean, why won't you say that we are going to get rid of Parkinson's disease? Well, why don't you commit to finding a cure for it?
Well,
discovery science. There's a phrase you've learned somewhere.
No, it's well. So let me say now. Then I'm committed to find a cure for Parkinson's. We're going to cure Parkinson's. You would rightly turn around and say, well, how are you going to do that then? Where's the new breakthrough coming through? How can you be confident of making that promise? And if there's one thing that's an even shorter supply than money in our country at the moment, it's trust in politics and politicians. So we have absolutely and unapologetically kept the promises we make in our manifesto specific, so that we can actually come back.
But I think you're saying it's reasonable to be aspirational.
Of course, because we've got the ambition to end Parkinson's. I think you can get Victoria Atkins on. She'd say, my ambition is to find a cure for Parkinson's. My ambition is to find a cure for Parkinson's. What I can't do is tell you or your listeners that during my tenure as Health and Social Care Secretary that we'll do it. What I can say is that we'll do everything we possibly can. But on the important point that Rory makes about adoption and rollout, though, the NHS is a terrible partner with life sciences and medical technology, and you end up in a situation where you get some brilliant people who come up with really good ideas, like the NeuroPen, which you've talked about before. You can prove the concept, you can show it works. Can you get the NHS to adopt it and roll it out? No, you can't.
I can give you a much better example. I'm on a patient involvement committee for something called home-based care, which would sort of change the model and have people come to the hospital less and maybe see their consultant via video phone and have smart watches to just keep an eye on them. And that has been successful in Devon and Cornwall, and they're trying to roll it out nationwide. But the original funders in Devon and Cornwall are now threatening to pull the plug on it before it's got going.
So, a new charity which we're forming, which has got the same one of its objectives is the same thing.
This is probably the problem with the NHS. It's got more pilots than the RAF, and if we just adopted and rolled out things that are proven to work, the NHS would be in a much better position than it is.
Parky Charter Clause 1, which comes from huge amounts of mail that we've had, is all about access to care, access to diagnosis in the first place. People waiting 1, maybe 2 years and then choosing to go private because it's the only way they can get it, to even see a neurologist for the first time. So what are you going to do about that?
So we've got a commitment to deliver 2 million more appointments every year in the NHS, of which 62,000.
How many are there now?
In the NHS overall, let me try to work out. This is about a few percent extra than what we do now, which might sound small in percentage terms in terms of overall volume. But if you think the NHS waiting list currently stands at 7.6 million, 2 million more appointments a year is a substantial increase. It's 40,000 more a week. And we think 62,000 of those we could deliver for improved access for conditions that relate to neurology.
62,000 strikes me as an odd number. Where on earth did that come from?
Well, we've just broken down, if you're delivering 2 million more appointments a year and looking at, been working with people in the NHS on this, working out of those 2 million, how many can we guarantee for neurology, and that's how we arrived at the figure. Working with a whole range of experts and advisors that are currently helping Labour this side of the elections, prepared to hit the ground running if, and I do stress if, we win the general election.
That 62,000 is for all of neurology, isn't it?
Yeah. So
how many will be for Parkinson's?
Well, there'll be a benefit to people with Parkinson's. I'm not sure. I'm not sure in opposition we can go down to that level of granular detail.
Right.
But I think it's a demonstration that we recognise that we've got to get back to the 18-week standard that the Parky Charter calls for, and we believe we can deliver by the end of the first term of a Labour government. There's a problem with the NHS. It's got more pilots than the RAF, and if we just adopted and rolled out things that are proven to work, the NHS would be in a much better position than it is.
What's stopping that?
I think primarily it's about culture. I think there is a cultural sniffiness in the NHS to working, particularly if something's a private sector innovation. The NHS is really sniffy about it.
Absolutely.
So the NHS loves health charities, it loves universities, but it's really sniffy about private sector innovation.
You want
You
people
need
in the
leaders at every
NHS
level.
to be thinking, we've got a Secretary of State who is a bull in a china shop.
Well,
That's what you want,
I
isn't
think
it?
there are lots of people in the NHS who feel like that about me. Yes, I think that is true. You want people to know that the Secretary of State has a grip and is going to drive performance and drive improvement on culture, for example, in relation to patient safety and whistleblowing, especially in the aftermath of Lucy Letby, the contaminated blood scandal.
Go back to the charter. Is that all right? Because I think that's what our listeners essentially are listening for at the moment. So there were 5 things.
Yeah,
in there.
run us
Yeah,
through
is that
it
all right?
You
So
can
we had
score me.
the speedy consultants, didn't we? Which you are addressing. To be fair,
Yeah, I feel
62,000 is a lot.
Number one, the first
Tick.
one on the
Tick.
party
Tick.
chart.
I think we'll
thought,
give you
yeah,
a tick
I'm
for that.
with you on
No. The second thing was information to make that
Yeah.
available to people.
I think I can commit on that. Yeah.
Okay, commitment on that one. Right, then there was the multidisciplinary team bringing together
Yeah.
people from all these specialities, and that was partly to do with what you've been talking about here, about prevention rather than cure. If you have physiotherapists, for
absolutely.
example, they're in the mix, then they can tell us how important exercise is, etc.
Yeah, and the link between physical health and mental health as well, because I'm always surprised when people receive a life-changing diagnosis, there isn't that automatic kind of assessment or connection with mental health, and we'll all respond in different ways. I coped okay with my cancer diagnosis, partly because my prognosis was so good. If I'd been caught at stage 3 or stage 4, I would probably have needed a lot more support, but that's not, the NHS doesn't join up in that way, so I absolutely agree with you about the importance of multidisciplinary teams.
Great, okay, so
And then
a
benefits.
potential tick there as well, although
Half a tick.
we need to talk about, I suppose, practicalities of how that would work, but obviously we can't do
Yeah,
that
and actually
now.
I'll talk to
Yeah.
Parkinson's UK as well about like how we envisage neighbourhood health service centres work, and whether that's the place to bring together that kind of team.
And then there was the parking passport, which probably doesn't fall within your remit.
Yeah, that's
So
kind of more DWP, but I will take that away and talk to Liz Kendall about it.
that would be wonderful. And maybe we could get her on as well.
Having people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people reassess to see if they've got better. If you've got Parkinson's, is absurd.
And it drives me nutty. I deal with this all the time in the last 9 years as a constituency MP. My frustration with people whose conditions, do not change and are degenerative, being told to kind of go back to see if we can be meaner on the means test. It's dehumanising and degrading, and actually, again, it's also a waste of public money.
Well,
You know,
that's why I
assessing
think
someone.
it's not more inefficiency. It's absurd.
Gillian?
And then we have the very last, but very much not the least, is the cure.
Well,
Right,
the
yeah.
money spent.
The
Yeah.
money spent, on the
And it's
cure.
not a big ask either. Is
No.
it?
Well,
No, it's
what
not.
can you tell us
Let
about
me
that?
go. Can I come back? I promise I'll come back to you on that. I don't want to make an unfunded spending commitment and get sacked before July the 4th, but I absolutely take the point about I need to go and look at the research budget
Maybe
properly. And look
maybe
at what we're
after
doing on
July the
neuroscience.
4th, if things turn out the way
Yeah,
people are predicting, maybe you'll come back to the pub and we can ask you
I'm very.
when you've got your hands on the levers of power.
Jeremy,
money will be made available.
final thought?
Well, I just hope it's not all pie in the sky. I've heard this before.
One final question,
Why
not
don't
a
you make a
Parkinson's
promise?
question. When Sir Keir was elected, first of all, people thought he'd be a stopgap leader like Neil Kinnock you were talked about as a skipping a generation future Prime Minister. Have you missed the bus?
I think I'm on the bus with Keir. Look, I don't mind saying when Keir became leader of the Labour Party, I thought he was more likely to be a Kinnock than a Blair, someone who would help to rescue and salvage the Labour Party from its near-death experience and put it on the path where it could win again. But my goodness, he has well confounded my expectations, the expectations of probably millions of other people. Of course, the implosion of the Tories and the SNP has put wind in Labour's sails, but the only reason we've got sails on the ship and the ship is shipshape is because of Keir's leadership. I think he's fundamentally decent. I think he's got the character, the experience and the drive and ideas to be a really great Prime Minister, and I very much hope people give him the chance to do that on July the 4th.
We'll see. We're Sreeting. Thanks very much. We do need change, and speaking personally, I'm excited and nervous in equal measure to see how a new government might cope with the multiple challenges of the NHS and everything else, of course. We'll be watching carefully and hope to see you again on the other side, and we'll be talking to the current Conservative Health Secretary very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks
And
for having
thank you
me.
for saying you'll come back as
I
well.
will do, yeah.
Thank you.